Open the door. Keep your hands present up in the air when you walk this way.
Can I please just give him a kiss?
Come on, ma'am, just have a seat.
This is Christen Davis, a woman trying to play the role of a distraught mother after pushing her newborn child into an irreversible tragedy. She repeatedly convinces the police that she is merely the victim of a rare accident, shifting all the blame onto her 4-year-old child.
Your fingers, pull my pants up.
However, the police discover she is hiding a dark truth right in her own home. This is a horrifying case of a dark mother who abandoned her innocent children to drown her sorrows in alcohol. In today's video, join Liu Channel as we expose Christen Davis's charade behind the contradictory statements at the scene of this shocking crime.
Come on, ma'am, just have a seat.
Police handcuffed a mother after her newborn did not survive, amid her claim that her 4-year-old son had caused the injuries. Officer Norman said Davis claimed her 4-year-old son injured the baby by throwing him into a ball pit. However, the actual investigation began on January 7th, when her infant was taken to the hospital. In her initial interview, Davis said she left the baby alone with the 4-year-old for 3 to 4 minutes, then returned to find the baby injured inside a ball pit. Davis also references a prior incident the day before, claiming the older child had previously thrown the baby into the same ball pit without injury. A 4-year-old child is not physically capable of lifting and throwing a 2-month-old infant with enough force to cause the level of injury later recorded, especially without direct adult negligence. Police say this statement was made after they were contacted by Oklahoma University Children's Hospital regarding the infant's critical condition. The infant did not survive approximately 12 hours later. Authorities later state the child suffered multiple severe head injuries. As the investigation continues, police determine the timeline does not match Davis's account. According to the probable cause affidavit, Davis had been consuming alcohol throughout the day. She reportedly texted the baby's father asking him to leave work to pick up their 4-year-old from daycare because she was too impaired to drive. When he did not leave work, Davis drove to the daycare herself around 15. Investigators state text messages suggested her blood alcohol concentration may have reached 0.14, nearly twice the legal driving limit. The investigation determined that the defendant purchased a bottle of whiskey around 9 a.m. that day, and then another around 3:30 p.m. while driving to pick up her eldest son from daycare. After returning home with her eldest son and OS, the defendant's phone was noted to be inactive and locked. From approximately 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., a period of about an hour and a half during subsequent questioning, the defendant admitted that OS was alone with her eldest son while she was significantly impaired and asleep. This coincided with the time her phone was inactive. Police believe that it was during this time that the child suffered serious injuries resulting in death, including internal organ damage and head trauma. Detectives quoted Davis as saying, "I can't do anything but blame myself. Based on the amount of alcohol purchased and the timing of consumption, there is reason to believe this is indicative of a serious alcohol dependence, rather than just a momentary lapse of judgment." Later, Officer Norman located and approached both the father and the mother in a parking lot.
Open the door! She's in the vehicle. She's flashing a light at me. Stand by. What was her name again?
Her name should be Kristen Davis.
Unlock it.
992.
Keep your hands on the window. Occupied one time. She's the only one in the vehicle. She's refusing to open the door. She says she can't open the door and won't unlock it.
Officers approach the vehicle Davis is sitting in. She initially refuses or claims she cannot unlock the door. The baby's father approaches the vehicle and is briefly detained while officers explain there's a homicide warrant.
I told her to keep her hands on the windows. She says she can't unlock it.
Are you familiar with this?
No.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
if it's going to be, hey, it's going to be a murder charge.
Huh?
It's going to be a murder charge.
Okay. I heard that earlier.
Huh?
I heard that earlier.
Okay.
There's a homicide warrant.
Homicide warrant. If her,
Davis is taken into custody.
Keep your hands present up in the air when you walk this way.
Use that hand.
all right.
No,
Does he have a gun on him?
no.
You don't need to yell at me.
Just don't. I know. They told
Keep
you.
coming this way.
They told you that you can let me have
coming this way.
it tomorrow.
Come this way.
Hold on, can I?
Watch out for the, okay.
Come this way. Keep your hands away from your waistline, okay? Just come right here.
He
Put your
has
hands on the hood.
nothing on him.
I'm not asking you anything. Deal with him. Put your hands on the hood.
I remember you guys, dude.
Put your hands right there.
No.
Christy, shut up.
Hands on the hood, okay? Do you have your weapons on you? Put your hands behind your back. And tuck your fingers.
Pull my pants up.
No.
Guess what, though? As soon as you said what? You said you're going to catch a charge. I shut the door and left your ass right there, did I not?
Right now, you're going to be detained until we figure out what's up, okay?
No,
Because you...
All right? You got a male, female detained.
Wherever you...
Okay.
Should I stand up straight or what, man? I mean, I can turn around. You guys are holding me like
Here, real quick.
I ain't going nowhere.
You asked about pulling your pants up. If you want to hook your finger through your belt loop and hold it up, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Let me just lock these so they don't tighten up on you.
Okay. He's gonna make sure your handcuffs on.
I'm not
I'm locking them so they don't tighten up anymore.
charged for it. I walked away, man. I can't
Oh,
do
hey,
this.
we're not.
You're good.
Right now, you're not in trouble. You're just being detained.
Throughout the interaction, she repeatedly focuses on asking to kiss her partner goodbye, rather than addressing the circumstances surrounding her child's death.
Can I please give him a kiss? Please. That's all I'm asking is for a kiss. Please. Why?
Because this is mine. I'm in charge right now, okay? Do you have anything on you that's going to put me or stick me?
No, he's already searched me. He's already
That's
taken
fine. I got to
everything.
still take responsibility, okay? Use the back of my hand, okay? Anything on the waistline?
No.
Pull your hands away from me.
Make sure they get ashes, please.
He gave it to him.
Can I please just give him a kiss?
Come on, ma'am. Just have a seat.
Did you notice that Davis's obsession with personal comfort and farewells during the arrest was unrelated to the seriousness of the situation? This reinforces the perception of poor judgment and a lack of situational awareness. One aspect that makes the story particularly heartbreaking is that the baby was born prematurely. Last November, Christen Davis created a GoFundMe fund for her son, titled Support Owen's Journey. She wrote, "Hello world, this is baby Owen. He decided to be born 5 weeks early and make a big debut. Started having intense contractions and went to the hospital to find out little Joy was ready to be born. He's a brave warrior, but being born prematurely presented some challenges, requiring him to spend some time in the neonatal intensive care unit. He's made incredible progress, but there's still a long way to go with all these changes, and the early birth has added to the costs." Sarah Shuttler, Public Information Officer for the Norman Police Department, described the incident as a profound tragedy for both the community and the investigators. She explained that the baby's injuries were severe and emotionally unacceptable, and the investigation ultimately concluded that the fatal injuries occurred while the child was unsupervised and the mother was significantly impaired.
Yeah, this is a really, really tragic case for our community and for our investigators. As we responded to that initial call, the injuries in this case were extensive and really difficult for our investigators to work through, and then ultimately come to the reality that such a young child suffered fatal injuries during a time period when they were left unattended and the mother was intoxicated.
This marks the end of speculation. Once investigators confirm intoxication and lack of supervision, responsibility rests entirely with the adult caregiver, regardless of any other explanations offered beforehand. Shuttler explains the investigation began on January 7th, when hospital staff contacted police due to the severity of the baby's injuries. The child was initially taken to a local hospital with a significant head injury. Medical staff quickly determined the injuries were inconsistent with a routine fall, prompting an airlift to a specialized children's hospital. Police responded directly to the hospital to begin interviews and evidence collection.
I want to start kind of, at the beginning of this story where, at first it sounds like Christen Davis is saying that, the child had been injured earlier, and that the child seemed okay. But then it seems like the story kind of changes and evolves as time goes on.
Right. So we first received this information in early January. On January 7th, we were actually contacted by medical staff at a local hospital due to the level of injuries that the child came into the emergency room with. So the parent, the defendant in this case, brought in the child to the emergency room with a pretty extensive head injury. Just based on what they initially assessed the child, they determined that this wasn't a typical accidental fall case. So they initiated the child to get some increased level of care. So they actually air flighted that child to a more specific hospital that cares for children in our area. And that's when we really became contacted and engaged in the case. And so investigators responded to the hospital and began an investigation there. The mother really started with information that there potentially was this terrible accident that occurred with an older child, a 4-year-old child, the baby in a ball pit. And that was really what was initially told to our investigators. As our investigators continued to work through that investigation, more information began to come forward in regards to what exactly led up to that incident on that day, on the 7th, what the mother's behavior was that day, what she was engaged in, and then ultimately about a 1.5-hour time frame where both children were left unattended and ultimately injuries were sustained that led to the death of that young child.
And when doctors determined the injury wasn't accidental, the parent's explanation loses its credibility. Medical professionals are trained to recognize types of injuries that cannot be explained by household accidents. Shuttler says the mother initially repeated the ball pit explanation involving the 4-year-old. As investigators continued working, additional evidence emerged about Davis's behavior that day, her alcohol consumption, and the approximately 1.5-hour period when both children were left unattended. Police believe this window is when the fatal injuries occurred.
Yes, a typical small ball pit that people would have in their children's playrooms or residences. Yeah.
At this point, the explanation of the ball being broken is physically impossible, as the severity of the injuries could not have been caused by the actions of a toddler, especially without prolonged neglect. When asked to clarify what kind of ball pit was involved, Shuttler confirms it was a small, typical children's play ball pit used inside a home. She reiterates that investigators confirmed Davis purchased alcohol multiple times that day, including after picking up the 4-year-old from daycare. Phone records helped establish the inactive period. Shuttler says Davis later acknowledged she was significantly impaired and asleep, and that investigators believe the lack of supervision during that time led directly to the baby's death.
Yeah, so our investigation really led us to a greater picture of what exactly occurred on that day. Through those investigations, we were able to determine and confirm that the mother had been consuming alcohol throughout the day, had gone to the liquor store multiple times to the day to purchase alcohol, including after picking the older child up from a daycare facility, and then ultimately going home. It's through those phone records that we were able to determine that there was this idle period where the phone was inactive, and ultimately the mother, came forward to talking about being intoxicated and sleeping. It was that lack of care for both children, and during that time period that ultimately led to the child suffering fatal injuries that ultimately led to their death.
Even without intent to harm, prolonged intoxication while responsible for 2 young children is viewed as a catastrophic failure of care. Shuttler states the investigation is ongoing and cannot release all details. She confirms the baby suffered blunt force trauma and multiple injuries that ultimately caused death, but says determining the exact mechanism for each injury remains part of the investigative process.
Yeah, so this is still an active investigation, and so at this point, it's hard to walk into all specifics about exactly what we believe occurred and what evidence is telling us occurred in regards to those injuries. But we can confirm that the child did suffer blunt force trauma and sustained several injuries that ultimately led to their death. And as to exactly what occurred, that's part of that ongoing investigation.
Let's revisit this moment. The footage captures the arrest, in which Davis appears to be focused on kissing her boyfriend. Shuttler explains that officers were enforcing a murder arrest warrant and found Davis in a vehicle. She initially claimed she couldn't get out of the car, but was eventually arrested without incident. Davis's behavior during the arrest was judged to be unrelated to emotion over the loss of his child, reinforcing the perception of poor judgment rather than shock or grief. Shuttler called it an extremely tragic incident that has affected family members, rescue workers, medical personnel, and investigators.
Yeah, so this was a warrant that once became active. Officers began working to locate her, and ultimately were able to locate her in a parking lot. She is with the father of the child that's deceased at the time. Officers initially detain that individual and then ultimately are able to take her into custody. They locate her in a vehicle in a parking lot. She at first is telling officers she doesn't know how to get out of the vehicle, and then ultimately does get out of the vehicle and is taken into custody.
As a result, the child's father was not charged. The 4-year-old was placed with another family member, and the investigation is ongoing. The mother has been formally charged with second-degree murder in the loss of her infant son. This is a serious charge that could result in many years of imprisonment, depending on the outcome of the trial. Ultimately, the investigation reached a clear conclusion. The child's injuries could not have been accidental, could not have been caused by another child, and could not have occurred under the supervision of a sober adult. At the time of being handcuffed on charges of second-degree murder, Christen Davis was forced to confront the reality that all previous explanations were legally invalid, and that responsibility could not be shifted to anyone else. This tragedy did not begin with violence, but with alcohol, negligence, and a period of unsupervised time. If you are stressed, struggling with alcohol dependence, or raising a child alone, seek family support, alcohol rehabilitation programs, or infant care services. It's always easier to ask for help early than to ask for forgiveness too late. Thank you for following this case. See you again in the next true crime case tomorrow.